Welcome to the Data Dojo podcast, hosted by Adam Massey and powered by the Aurek Group. Every week, we dive deep into the world of data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Here, we bring you conversations with the leading minds who are shaping the future of these cutting-edge fields. So get ready to unlock the secrets of data and discover the stories behind the algorithms.
Hi there, welcome to the Data Dojo podcast. This is season 1, episode 1. This week, to kick us off, I'm joined by Maria Patrakova. She currently heads up data engineering practices for a couple of different startups, Nudge Super and Traffic AI. So really happy to have you on the podcast, Maria. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. So I guess just to kind of kick things off, really, for people who don't know you already, if you can just provide us a bit of a background on your professional journey and how you've got to where you are today, that'd be great.
So I have been passionate about data for a long time. I'm a bit of a data nerd, and I have started my journey in Russia, where I worked as a business intelligence developer. And I have moved to Australia and joined Quantium in 2011. That's quite a big move. As industry evolved, I've changed my roles from BI developer to big data developer to data engineer and so on. During my time at Quantium, I led several data teams and I architected several data and big data projects. In 2019, I joined Trinity as head of data engineering to help establish data engineering practice. And 2 years ago, I decided to venture into startup world, which was both challenging and rewarding experience. I have learned a lot. And in the past couple of months, maybe a bit more, I'm exploring fractional leadership. So I'm currently working as a fractional head of data and a fractional head of data engineering at 2 different startups. And I find it very exciting because this role allows me to bring my expertise to different organizations, and also keeps me motivated and keeps me learning nonstop about our constantly changing data space.
Excellent. And how do you manage your time then, working between the 2 different companies? Has that been a bit of a challenge?
It is a bit of a challenge, and it's a context switch for sure. I'm lucky in the sense that we work with the similar technologies. I am still learning. It's a new journey for me. The thing that works for me well is allocating certain days to certain clients. And of course, if there is an emergency, I have to jump on a call and solve something. But I think overall, yes, just allocating certain days and focusing on one problem at a time is what works well for me.
Excellent. And I guess with the work you're doing, I think we spoke a little bit about some of the pieces of work you was doing with Nudge Super. Can you maybe just talk to us a little bit about what kind of work you're doing there with kind of AI machine learning that's quite innovative at the moment?
Yeah, of course, AI is everywhere now. And we had AI hackathon recently at Nudge Super. And what we have started building recently is RAG system, retrieval augmented generation system on Snowflake, which is essentially a chatbot. But the aim is to be able to build dashboards using natural language. So we integrate Snowflake Cortex with dbt semantic layer, and we are able to display those metrics in an easy to understand way. It's very much in development, but it looks very, very promising.
And I guess what are the kind of big challenges you face then when you're trying to implement these type of solutions, particularly in a startup environment? What kind of typical challenges are you facing when you're doing that?
Well, I worked at both enterprises and startups, and they're different, and they're different because they're trying to solve different problems. They approach problems differently. Enterprises often focus on stability and compliance and small incremental improvements because the cost of making a mistake is really high. And even if we plan a new projects, new big transformation projects at enterprise environment, all those projects have to be designed properly from the beginnings to mitigate those risks. Early stage startups are very different in this sense because early stage startups are focused on survival. And as a result, we have to prioritize rapid growth and innovation. It's means that you have to be willing to risk and experiment much more often than you would do in enterprise environment.
Yeah.
And of course, the downside is that we don't have infrastructure and resources that enterprises have. So that's obviously a constant challenge. I guess it depends on the environment. You just have to choose the right strategy. So if you are in a startup, you have to be very agile. You have to be very open to constant context switching, and you have to be very open to experimentation and risks.
And is that something that you've really embraced and enjoyed? Because I know obviously with your background, you've worked across a lot of consulting work, I guess, over the last few years. How has that been a change for you?
There are pros and cons in both, right? What I like about working in enterprise environment is that the ability to solve some big problems. If you are in charge of large transformation project, there are certain decisions you have to make that can have implications for a large number of people. With the startup, you have to make very different decisions. And again, the cost of a mistake may be very high as well. I do like being in a startup environment at the moment. It's dynamic, it's innovative, and I like working with a small group of very driven people.
Yeah.
So that's something I really enjoy at the moment.
Excellent. And I guess from a technology perspective, what are the kind of typical tools and that you guys are using at the moment? And, you know, how are these new tools kind of transforming the way you actually go about doing this kind of work at the moment?
Technology obviously changed a lot in the past 20 years. And it's interesting that many data engineers today have no idea of the problems we had even 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like storage was expensive, compute was expensive. You have to do a lot of upfront planning and optimization work because you cannot just throw your data in and decide what you're going to do with it later. That's what's happening now. Often you try to bring as much data as you can because you usually don't know what answers you want to get from this data. You have to do a lot of exploration work in advance to be able to understand what this data brings and brings you. So we're definitely very much cloud focused because cloud gives us scalability we need. Like when we need to run some big job, we can scale it up and we can bring it down that we don't need to. It wouldn't be possible 20 years ago. You would have to purchase this equipment. You couldn't rent it. You couldn't just hire it. So I think that's why there are so many more startups in this data space. Like, I don't know if you follow, but the number of data startups since cloud became popular just grew exponentially because it's possible to experiment. It's possible to try those crazy ideas. And some of those startups are very famous now. So yeah, I think cloud is the main enabler for us and lots of technologies from the modern data stacks, say Snowflake, Databricks, and lots of data ingestion tools which let us bring data easily. dbt, I'm a big fan of dbt because it gives this robustness to this data analytics engineering, data engineering work, and a few other tools which I use daily.
Yeah, you've been quite vocal on LinkedIn, I think, and a lot of what you talk about on LinkedIn is around some of the nuances around these tools, and in particular things like dbt. I guess one thing I did want to touch on as well, obviously I know you've been obviously working in this space for around 20 years now. What's your experience been like as a woman working in the technology space, and particularly in data, over that 20 years, and how has it evolved, I guess?
Well, being a woman in tech has had its ups and downs, and it's been challenging sometimes, but also it's incredibly empowering. But I think what's important is that gender is only one part of the diversity. There are many more other dimensions. And I don't think we talk often enough about them.
Yeah.
So personality is one example. Like when you think of a leader, you usually imagine some extroverted, loud person. But there are lots of great introverted leaders. They're just less visible and less loud and less known.
Yeah.
And culture and background, it's also very important. There are not many leaders out there whose English is a second language. And for me, I'm all three. I'm an introvert, I'm a woman, and English is my second language. So, when I moved to Australia in 2010, I thought my options would be very limited for these exact reasons. And let me tell you a story.
Yeah, sure.
It's just something that changed my outlook. I read a book, it was a long time ago, maybe more than 10 years ago, by Inna Kuznetsova. She's a Russian. It's in Russian, so I don't think your listeners would look it up. But she moved to the United States in 90s, and she joined IBM, and she eventually became a vice president of IBM. And now she is the CEO of some large organization, another large organization. And of course, she had to overcome lots of real challenges, and she wrote about them in her book. One additional thing she wrote about was this concept of a glass ceiling. And these are invisible barriers we impose on ourselves because we compare us with someone who are like us. And unlike real challenges that we all have, this invisible barrier, this glass ceiling, actually prevents us from even trying.
Yeah.
And this book completely changed my perception because she's someone I could relate to. She's a female. She actually graduated from the same university as I did. She also talked about being an introvert and how she hated networking and all those things. And just because this book was written by someone who I can relate to, this completely changed my perspective on what is possible. And I think this experience just showed me how important it is to have those role models, this diverse role model, and making them visible. So that's partly the reason I'm talking to you today. I just want to make sure it's visible as possible, and maybe, I don't know, someone else will see me and decide that, okay, well, if she's doing it, then I can do it as well.
Exactly, yeah. I think, are you involved with the women in technology sort of scene?
I used to be a mentor, when COVID started, just before COVID started, I used to be a mentor, and it was very rewarding experience as well. I just don't have a lot of time at the moment because I have a little baby at home. Yeah, that's something I want to get back to. Having mentors and being a mentor is a great and very valuable experience.
So you've got a young born baby and you're working 2 jobs, heading up data teams. How do you feel that, and how do you kind of manage your time around that?
I like it actually because I get the flexibility I want. It's me being able to choose clients I work with and being able to choose projects I work on, and managing my time. It's not about spending certain hours, it's about outcome as well. So if I want to spend a couple of hours with my baby in the afternoon and then do my work in the evening when she's sleeping, it's fine.
So that flexibility is key, isn't it? And I think in this day and age now, every company's looking at that and trying to find that right balance for people.
Yes, flexibility is key, and that's why I've never heard about fractional concept until this year, but it makes a lot of sense to me now, and that's why I see more and more of that on LinkedIn, just because people embrace it and find that it gives them flexibility they want. For some people, they choose to work 50, 60 hours a week still, but it means they're getting paid more. Others choose to work 30 hours a week, or 40 hours a week, but choose time when it's more convenient for them to work.
And I guess from the employer's perspective as well, as a startup owner, you're getting that level of experience for a lot less money because you're only fractionally paying for that person's time.
Exactly.
And you're getting that expertise for that smaller amount of time rather than getting someone at a lower cost who doesn't have that expertise, but you've got them all week kind of thing. So it kind of a win-win situation really when you're in that sort of situation and company.
I think so, especially when you're a startup. Time is everything. So when you have access to someone who has an answer, it's very valuable, because otherwise you have to do your own research and spend days and potentially make mistakes that you could avoid otherwise.
Exactly, yeah. I just want to touch on leadership for a second. I guess you've obviously had experience working with a variety of different types of companies to build out kind of data engineering and development teams. What, I guess, are your kind of key strategies when you're assembling sort of those kind of teams with those kind of niche skill sets?
I think it's a constant learning journey. And I hope I'm a much better leader than I was 5-10 years ago, because I've made mistakes, I've learned, and I hope I'm improved. If I have to pick maybe 3 main strategies, the first would be align your team with the business goals, with the why. No one likes being told what to do. So when you explain the why behind certain decisions, people are much more likely to get on the journey with you. And secondly, empower your team members. Like, you need to find the right balance between being there to guide your team, but also not being a bottleneck where you have to be involved in every single decision. When your team feels empowered, they also have ownership of what they develop, which is also very valuable. And lastly, communication. Like, I don't think you can underestimate communication enough. Open communication, never make assumptions. It's my job as a leader to make sure I provide right feedback at the right time, solve challenges that occur. That probably the summary of that.
Yeah. And I guess with obviously at the moment, AI is such a huge kind of buzzword. I guess, what do you kind of see in the future of the data analytics community and business intelligence? What do you think are the next things that are going to be implicated with things like AI and generative work and stuff like that? How do you view that?
I'm a big fan of AI and large language models. I was a bit scared, like, when it first came up, just because it seemed like everything is possible. Now, being using them mostly daily for over a year, I'm very well aware of different limitations they have. So at this stage, I'm looking forward to advancement in this space, and I believe AI can help us being more productive if used correctly. But I think what's important is that AI is only as good as your data. And that's why I don't think data jobs will disappear. Data quality is still a challenge. Data quality was a challenge 20 years ago. Data quality is still a challenge today. And you need high quality, diverse data sets to be able to train your AI model. I hope that AI will help us solve different mundane problems and leave us with interesting tasks to solve. But I'm also looking forward at some different advances in data. Just because I read an article the other day, and the author estimated that companies spend around $5 billion a year on data ingestion. And I'm talking about data ingestion, moving data from point A to point B without any logic, any transformation. This is crazy. I know it's just an estimate, but this is a lot of money. And it's a boring operational task that does not add inherent value. It's just moving data. So I'm looking forward to advancements like open table formats like Iceberg and data sharing that will solve this data movement problem, hopefully. And especially when we can easily share data across different platforms, which is not really solved today well, but it will be solved, I'm sure, in the next few years. And I'm really looking forward to that. And I do hope data quality is solved eventually. Like, it will be very sad that 10 years from now, we still have conversations why my two numbers in two different dashboards don't match. And I don't think AI can help with that. We need to be more resilient, more robust with how we implement our data governance and data management practices.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think ever since I've been recruiting in the data space, it's always come back to the quality of data. No matter what kind of model you're running, whether it's a machine learning model or just a small piece that you're doing, it's always dependent on the quality of the information that you're feeding it. And I think that thing's never going to change by the sounds of it. And I think it's just the way we address that. But hopefully with some of these AI tools, it might, like I say, optimize some of the ways and some of the tasks we do and put a lot of emphasis on now so that we can focus in on those kind of issues a lot more.
And I think AI can help us with data quality. I wrote an article recently about Snowflake Cortex and anomaly detection. And what it lets you, obviously it was not designed for data quality, it's just anomaly detection model, which you can use within your database with SQL. So you don't need to hire data scientists, machine learning engineers, like any data person can run the SQL to query your data to identify data anomalies. And I think that's important because like if you ingest data, say you are retail and you ingest data from lots of different POS terminals, and suddenly you have drop in your data, 20% drop in your data. Is it okay? Is it because it's a slow day? Or should you raise an alert and someone has to be? You don't know. Because some days are naturally more slow than another. Maybe it's a Christmas, maybe it's a Easter, maybe it's something else. Or if you see double the data, is it your data duplication problem, or it's pre-Christmas and everything is doing shopping. So if you train your models to do anomaly detection, you can solve particularly this problem, how you can identify anomalies in your data and improve your data quality in a more robust way, rather than creating like checks and rules that if it's less than 20%, then yesterday let's raise an alert so human goes and checks the data.
Yeah, excellent. And I guess for those who want to follow you, because I know you are quite active on LinkedIn, you're posting articles up very regularly. I'll put some links into the show notes as well so people can go on there and follow you for that information. And I'm also guessing that if you are a startup owner out there and you're interested to find out what kind of work you can do with data and AI and engineering, they can reach out to you, I guess, and
Absolutely.
have those kind of conversations.
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm starting to get a good understanding. Obviously, I worked with three startups so far, but I'm starting to see patterns of what types of data problems startups have. So I'll be really keen to speak to startup founders, non-technical startup founders, and understand what data problems they have. I'll probably post something on LinkedIn and put my calendar so we can have like a few discovery calls. It could be half an hour, 1 hour call, and maybe I can help them with some questions they have. But also for me, just to learn what are other challenges maybe I'm not seeing, and it will help me again grow as a fractional data lead.
On today, Maria. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.